has done it again. Here comes the Padres. Walk-off win. Jorge Alfaro has done it again.
Every story has its subplots that supplement the main plot to keep audiences engaged. For example, the main story of every MLB season is 30 teams competing for a championship. However, the other storylines are just as noteworthy. Aaron Judge's record-breaking home run chase and Albert Pujols' improbable road to 700 home runs were two of the biggest storylines of the 2022 season. Memorable and historic moments like these are why some seasons are remembered more fondly than others. Now, let's place this logic on a singular team, the 2022 San Diego Padres, a team who sought to build upon their failures from their previous season in hopes they can win their first ever World Series. Storylines like Manny Machado's MVP chase, Fernando Tatis Jr.'s season-long absence, and the overwhelming desire to beat the Dodgers were just some of the stories that made this season special. However, one of my favorite stories was the emergence of Jorge Alfaro. In his only season as a Padre, Alfaro became one of the most popular players in recent team history, despite not even being an everyday starter. However, during his younger years, Alfaro was projected to be a future star. Back in 2010, a 16-year-old Jorge Alfaro was signed as an international free agent by the Rangers for a signing bonus of $1.3 million, a record figure for a Colombian amateur player at the time. As he continuously improved his prospect status, he ended up being part of two massive trades. Near the 2015 trade deadline, Alfaro was part of a deal that sent Cole Hamels to the Rangers. Then a few years later, he was sent to the Marlins in the JT Realmuto trade. However, Alfaro could never really put it all together. He had standout tools like elite exit velocity and a great arm, but to say he had a problem with plate discipline was an understatement. Between 2018 and 2021, Alfaro was the only player to have a strikeout rate over 30% and a walk rate less than 5%. Despite this, Padres GM AJ Preller continued his trend of acquiring as many former Rangers players as possible by trading for Alfaro right before the lockout started. He was entering a crowded catching situation in San Diego, but he was grateful for the opportunity. "You won't regret this. I will give you my best." This is what Alfaro told Preller after the trade. Alfaro impressed everyone during his spring training stint, and with Victor Caratini being traded to the Brewers, Alfaro had a clear spot as the Padres' backup catcher. For his first few games, Alfaro's spring training production carried over, including a home run that followed a Jurickson Profar grand slam. While the rest of the month was very streaky, Alfaro eventually got his big moment. On May 8th, the Padres were facing the Marlins at the end of a 4-game series. Even though the Padres had won 2 out of 3 thus far, they hadn't scored more than 3 runs in a game. Despite only giving up a couple runs in this game, the Padres couldn't take advantage. Although the bottom of the 9th had a wild sequence of events, from Profar getting a single, to being thrown out at third in the next at-bat, to CJ Abrams keeping the game alive with 2 outs. All of this led to Jorge Alfaro being called upon to pinch hit. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Alfaro is a free swinger. Entering this game, among players with at least 50 plate appearances, Alfaro had the league's worst strikeout rate. Literally, all the pitcher had to do was to not throw it down the middle.
High drive, deep left center field. How far will Alfaro send this one? Gone!
The fact this was on Mother's Day and Alfaro's mother called him before the game to say he would hit a home run makes this moment that much more special. Before this at-bat, the Marlins had a win expectancy of around 91.5%, which was as high as 96% before CJ Abrams' at-bat. This 91.5% shift in win expectancy was the second largest WPA shift in the entirety of 2022. WPA, or win probability added, quantifies the percent change in a team's chances of winning from one event to the next. So because the Padres had around a 9% chance of winning before Alfaro's at-bat, WPA says Alfaro single-handedly improved the Padres' chances of winning by 91.5%, which is an incredibly high shift in win expectancy. In fact, since 1903, this play is tied for the 19th largest regular season WPA shift ever. Honestly, that doesn't feel like it should be possible, but the stats are right there. So it's fair to say we've seen Alfaro's most unlikely walk-off of the season. But that doesn't mean the rest of his walk-offs weren't noteworthy. Following this win, the Padres were 19-10, and even without Tatis in the lineup, they continued to establish themselves as playoff contenders, eventually leading to a first-place position after sweeping the Cubs in mid-June. However, following a scary injury to Manny Machado and being swept by the Rockies, this team's outlook wasn't looking too good. They needed to use their series against the Diamondbacks as a way to get back on track. After winning the first game of the series, the Padres went into extra innings the following day. It was clear they were feeling the absence of Machado as they had only 4 hits through 10 innings. All of these hits were credited to the 6 through 9 hitters, including Jorge Alfaro, who was thrown out after trying to stretch a double into a triple. But in the bottom of the 11th, Alfaro had a chance to redeem himself.
Alfaro grounds it into left field. It's Zokar coming around. The throw! It's late. Padres win!
The WPA shift of 30% wasn't nearly as drastic as his first walk-off, but he was the only Padre to have a multi-hit game, and it eventually led to a sweep of the Diamondbacks. Also, following this walk-off, Alfaro impacted his team in a different way, specifically at the end of his post-game interview.
San Diego.
No one knew it yet, but this phrase would take on a life of its own. Despite sweeping the Diamondbacks, the Padres were very inconsistent over the next couple weeks, as they lost series to the Phillies, Dodgers, and Mariners, a period where the Padres ranked towards the bottom in number of runs scored. In their opening game of a series against the Giants on July 7th, the same thing was happening, which led to the Giants only needing 1 run to tie the game in the top of the 9th. To make matters worse, Jurickson Profar suffered a mid-game injury, one of the team's most consistent players. Once again, things weren't looking good. But the game wasn't over yet, and with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 10th, a pinch hitter came to bat, Jorge Alfaro.
Alfaro hits one to deep left center field. Slater going back. That's the ball game. Alfaro walks it off again. Kim will score. Padres win 2-1.
I think they're waiting for something. Just let's fucking go San Diego.
This catchphrase had become part of the team culture. Alfaro even started wearing it on a t-shirt just a few days later, and not too long after that, a mural of Alfaro was created. Now, this may seem a bit weird, but this was far from the only Padres mural to be painted within the past year. However, in the cases of guys like Gwynn, Tatis, Machado, and Musgrove, those murals were commissioned by the Padres. This one was not. It was painted by someone else. Regardless, Alfaro was grateful. This is the first time that something like that has happened to me. It means a lot to me and my family. My dad was very emotional. It means a lot, not just to me, but the whole team. We can feel that love, the positive vibe, good vibes everywhere we go in San Diego. He wasn't wrong. Everything from the walk-offs, to the catchphrase, to the mural, to even his walk-up music being cheered every at-bat. All in all, in just half a season, Alfaro had turned himself into a team cult hero. But there's still half a season left to go. At this point, it was clear Alfaro was more than just a walk-off specialist, as he ranked as one of the league's better hitting catchers, peaking on June 22nd when he had an .826 OPS and a .133 WRC+. In fact, Alfaro's month of June was his second best month ever in terms of OPS. However, as the season continued on, Alfaro's production began to diminish, and his playing time became more infrequent. Also, despite going 16-13 in August, the Padres were one bad run away from losing their wildcard spot. Well, after 2 losses to the Dodgers, being shut out at home by the Diamondbacks, and being down 5-0 to the Diamondbacks the following day, fears of a potential late-season collapse emerged. Home runs by Jake Cronenworth, Ha-Sung Kim, and Josh Bell brought the deficit down to 1. But when they had the tying run at third in the 8th inning, Juan Soto struck out and Manny Machado popped out. Even in the bottom of the 9th, after a leadoff walk by Bell, outs by Cronenworth and Kim meant the Padres had just a 9% chance of winning. 4 straight losses with the toughest September schedule in the league was a worst-case scenario. But a Will Myers single and impressive 9-pitch walk by Jose Azocar kept the game alive for number 9 hitter Jorge Alfaro. Bases loaded and 2 outs. This was it. But all Ian Kennedy had to do was one thing. Don't throw it down the middle.
Up the middle into center field. Crowder will score. Here comes Myers. Here comes the Padres. Walk-off win. Jorge Alfaro has done it again.
To be fair, it wasn't totally down the middle, but Alfaro still came through. This time with a 73.7% WPA walk-off hit, the 23rd highest of the season. But this was more than a sudden shift in win expectancy. This was a pivotal win for the Padres' playoff hopes. It may be hyperbolic to say this saved the Padres season, but the morale boost was significant. That's something obviously we really needed in that moment. So that was really good for us to be able to come back and do that. We'll take any win we can at this moment. A quote from Will Myers after the game. The Padres continued to maintain their wildcard spot, but as the number of games diminished, potential losses became more significant. With the series against the Dodgers being 3 of the Padres' final 9 games, any win was massive. This series began on September 27th, and it was a back and forth game with runs and big plays being traded between both teams, eventually culminating in extra innings as the result of a blown save after a wild pitch. At least that's according to Baseball Reference. At the time, this was considered a passed ball, meaning the blame is on the catcher rather than the pitcher. Alfaro needed a chance to redeem himself. Well, with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 10th, he got his chance.
Fouled straight back. Ball and a strike. Ball 2. Swing and a miss, and it's 2-2. Ball 3. Ball 4, Padres win. From third base comes a Zokar, and the Padres walk it off.
Yes, a walk for Alfaro's 5th walk-off of the year. When was the last walk he had taken? July 26th. Honestly, this is on par with the Mother's Day walk-off in terms of unlikeliness. I couldn't believe it. I walked to finish a game. It's not a secret, I don't walk that much. Alfaro's total of 5 walk-offs ties Jorge Polanco as the only player since 2009 with 5 walk-offs in a single season. Although, you have to wonder if Alfaro could have added to this total in the postseason, particularly in Game 6 of the NLCS. With Austin Nola struggling mightily in that series, should Alfaro have pinch hit for him in the 9th? He didn't have a single postseason at bat, but it's a what if that still lingers in my mind. Nonetheless, despite the mediocre statistical season, to say Alfaro's 1-year stint as a Padre was memorable is an understatement. He wasn't the superstar everyday player like Machado or Soto, but for a guy who was traded for $100,000, he was well worth the investment. His huge impact during big moments and his contributions to team culture can't be taken away. And that's why Jorge Alfaro's role in the story of the 2022 Padres will forever be remembered. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did, subscribe to Start Raving Sports, check out my channel SportStorm, and write down a team cult hero you want me to cover in the comments below. Thanks for watching.